Got the laser out today, doing a little measurement here of the upper, well, the surface level, I guess you might say, of the pond. I want to try to get this as flat as possible all the way around here. And so far I've just been doing the rough level work on that. Today we're probably going to do more talking than action because I've got a lot to talk about. We've made a lot of progress on the pond and I haven't had the cameras out all the time. So I'm going to talk you through these things. Let's get started. Well, hopefully you can see that there has been a lot of change since the last video we've shown you on our pond project. We've really worked pretty hard at getting the bottom finished. At least I thought it was finished. More on that in a minute too. But we've got the bottom flat, smoothed out a little bit. I've had the power rake down in there. Some of you guys that were saying in earlier episodes, oh, look at that, you got a mess, you got a mess. I suspect that just having that smoothed out with the power rake makes it look a little bit better. Got a little bit of a road around here. I've had that the whole time, but now that I've taken the power rake out there, it looks a little bit more, finished. So what we've been working on here is getting these edges all the way raised up to level. Oh, you've probably noticed that evil thing over there. It's not mine, nor have I set foot near it. We might go take a look at it. But the neighbor who's hauling dirt, he's been hauling when I've not been around. And you know, I'm just going to be transparent about this. Johnny 5 with those narrow front tires is not the handiest machine to be loading trucks. So these guys aren't really very familiar with tractors, and they have this skid steer loader. So I said, why don't you just go ahead and bring your skid steer up, track loader up, and use it to do your loading. I don't have any issues with people using my equipment. But on the other hand, this one just seemed like a little bit of a safety issue. So I just suggested that they not use Johnny 5 while I wasn't here anyway. And just there's a little bit of practice to be able to load a tall truck like that. What I've been doing is using Johnny 5 to dump some dirt, some of the more mucky clay type dirt that I've had right up around this lip of the pond here. And then using the power rake and Vinny to smooth it out and try to get some degree of level. On this end here, you'll see that I don't have it as steep, and I've got this shelf left here. The idea was to have some shallower area where bait fish could spawn. I'm not sure it's shallow enough yet. Yeah, that's another challenge that I'll have to work through as time goes forward. But I don't want it too shallow. I don't want cattails to be growing up in it, that type of thing. Let's go down to the bottom of the pond. I want to show you my newest invention. No, it's not an invention. Let's check it out. You might just enjoy the walk down here with me. It's a fairly easy walk at this point. I've got most of the steep parts, how would I say, tamed a bit. The blue clay that was along the side doesn't look blue anymore. It really is interesting. As it sees air, it changes color to be like all the other clay. Okay, here we are pretty close to the bottom. I'm standing, I'm guessing about 11 feet, 12 feet deep at this point. So yeah, there's some of the groundwater issues right there. Now I might be able to get down here and you can actually see it bubbling up. So all of this water out here is coming from those two little holes as far as I can tell. It's entirely possible that there's some more like it here, but for the most part, those two holes are all of that groundwater there. So what I've done is with a shovel, I've done some ditching to run it over to my sump pump. Yeah, more on that in a second. Here's some of the ditch up through here. So there's clearly another area over here where we're getting a little bit of groundwater. I think it's around in here somewhere. I don't see it bubbling up, so it must not be leaking nearly as fast as the other area over there. I had some more leakage on this side over here, but I piled some dirt in there and I've stopped that. And I say stopped it, I just don't understand enough about underground water. This here is still spongy. It's not nearly as bad as it was. We've had a chance for this to dry. And I do think that my sump pump is effectively lowering the water table a little bit, right? It keeps the water pumped down, and therefore over time it seeps out of the ground here and the sump takes it in. The sump's unplugged right now because I was working up around the edge of the pond, and this has been, I don't know, several hours now. So I've just used a regular household sump pump. Nothing fancy. I just wanted to make sure I had one big enough to be able to handle this much head height. I think this one's rated at still a pretty good gallons per minute, over 25 I believe, even with 25-foot head. And I've got only about 12, but I also have, not, a good bit of distance in pipe there before I get to that. I also bought just a regular household sump pump basin. And what I did was I drilled holes in that basin. I just drilled 1/4-inch holes. Now I've heard you were supposed to use slits instead of holes. I could have done that. Maybe it would have even been a little bit faster. But I wasn't too worried about it because this sump pump is rated to handle some trash. They said solids up to 3/8 of an inch, so I felt with 1/4-inch holes I'd be pretty good on that. I do see some silt go in there. I don't have any way to really measure how often the pump runs, but just anecdotally, it's multiple hours, probably 4 to 6 hours between runs. So we're not leaking very badly at this point. I can tell you that being able to walk out here on all of this is a huge step forward. I could not before. I can still get out here where it's mushy, but I really think if I raised that and had just those ditches there, that I could probably even work over that as well. Pretty sure I could improve this a little bit more by getting that water out of there one direction or another, make it so it flows a little easier. It's made a huge difference just taking a little bit of time to get the water draining away so it doesn't just sit there and soak. Same thing over here. This area was really wet and it was still really spongy just a few days ago. It's solidified enough that I didn't have any issue with Vinny. Now, over here, this is not leakage. This is leftover from the last rain. We got about 1/4 inch of rain the other day. It has stayed here several days, so it's not leaking fast downward, I will say that. But it's evaporated out over time here. This is a little bit lower than the sump pump, and I could have ditched a way over there, but yeah, that's what I chose to do. They're loading up the old blue Studebaker. If you missed our discussion of the old Studebaker, you might check it out in a prior video. It was actually the thumbnail on the video. But these guys are getting the dirt piled down. Looking at it from this angle, you can see that the ground level's creeping up on them there a little bit. But we'll get all that resolved at some point. I haven't really made any progress now in several days in the pond, other than just dressing it up a little bit with Vinny. And that's because I've been doing more research, more phone work. Yeah, I've talked to a professional organization that knows a lot about ponds. I had no idea how much science there is into dealing with ponds. I'll have more about some of that in a future episode, but just to summarize, they don't think that what I've done here on the sides is sufficient. Now, they're not saying for sure that it's not sufficient. They're just saying, well, you've got it dry, Tim. I think we would do a little bit more. And so that's on the sides and on the bottom. Just to give you a little bit of hint into the future, I suspect it won't look anything like this on the bottom at some point. I really wanted to kind of keep that structure in the bottom, but I think they're going to talk me out of that. We'll see how that goes as the future progresses. Are you guys interested in that level of detail? We're actually considering getting this professional organization to help us at significantly more detail and providing us the ability to share that educated information. This organization has a hydrologist on staff. That sounds expensive, right? No, they have a lot of experts, and they're going to potentially do soil tests with us, a lot of more detailed information, like I was saying, than what I knew needed to be done. Maybe hard for you to see because it looks shadowed, but this area stays damp. I never really see water flowing out of it, but it's stayed damp the whole time. It's certainly more sandy here. In this location of the pond, we had kind of sandy issues the whole time. I have a feeling that's some of the water table coming back in as well. I'm almost out of my favorite blue clay. I've got this little knob here that sticks out, and back here it's pretty sandy. Over there on that side, it's pretty sandy. Now there's some blue clay under there, but it's not consistent in height where it comes from there. So, and I wanted to leave that shelf anyway for spawning area. I may not be able to do everything I want to do, right? That kind of happens. I did some measurements today, and I believe we're right at 1/4 acre total on the pond. Across here, this side is 99 feet at the surface, and the long direction, kind of north and south, northwest, southeast, is 137 feet. Okay, I plugged it in now. I don't know if the pump kicked on or not. We'll go down this side and see. Even after being unplugged for several hours, it didn't turn on its own. I just pulled up the float a little bit manually there, and we'll let it run down here. This pump and all the ones that I saw were 1.5 inch output. I just modified it so I could use my existing 2-inch hose just to raise the size a little bit. And then I actually put a quick coupler on it to make it easy. So I don't have my little ditch perfect. I've got some water standing there, but you get the point. Now here's another area I'm seeing seepage. I have tried several times to cover this and see if I could get it sealed, and I cannot. It's coming out of the side of this right in here somewhere. I could dig it out and I could get a closer look of where it's coming from, but I cannot put enough clay in there, tamp it down enough. You can see I've driven the excavator in there. I cannot get it to stop. So that's a little disheartening. I'm assuming that you're aware of this, but let me make it clear the sump pump is temporary. Obviously, you can't have a sump pump in your pond if you want it to be a pond, just the opposite. Yeah, it's temporary just to try to keep this seepage at bay so that we can get most of it dry, and that's going to allow us to do some work in here to fix some of these issues. To that end, I promise you that the next episode is going to be more action-oriented. We'll either be working on the surface, on the rim of the pond, getting it leveled and getting it more ready for seeding, or we'll be working in here. And I just can't tell you which order it's going to be yet. There's several pieces that have to come together for me to be able to do the next steps in here. And some of them actually are quite interesting. It's like putting a puzzle together for me and getting the right equipment, getting the right product. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge. I hope you guys have enjoyed this project. I know that I have. I've learned a lot. I've not learned nearly enough to go do this for someone else, but it's been incredibly interesting to me. Appreciate you following along. Always love hearing your feedback in the comments, and yes, I do pay attention to it. I know it seems simple just to write a comment. Oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should compact the sides. I know I need to compact the sides. Yeah, I do read the comments, and I am trying to pay attention. It just doesn't always happen like it is in the movies, right? Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. Your hands made me and formed me. Give me understanding to learn your commands.